III, who is the nephew of the first, and Napoleon III, he was responsible for the way Paris looks. He's responsible for the size of Paris. The buildings that you see, all the blocks here on our left-hand side, all of those, and you must have noticed already as you were driving around that there are quite a lot of the buildings in the city which are very similar. Yeah, they're all in the same style. Some people actually say that it's boring because it's, you know, the same thing everywhere, you know. It has to do with the second half of the 1800s, when Napoleon III was in charge. He had spent a lot of time in exile in England, this man. Okay? He was very good friends with Queen Victoria. It was mainly thanks to Queen Victoria, actually, that he eventually had a son. Because she would have given, you know, them a tip to be able to...
yeah, super.
So they say. I don't know, there was something they were doing wrong, and she told them, no, don't, well, whatever. Their children are so sorry. Sorry. Anyway. London to him was a very modern town. Okay? Paris was an old city that still looked medieval. You had streets like this everywhere, even much narrower. It was getting very, very difficult to get around, you know. You didn't have a proper sewer system. You had more and more and more people who came to live in the city, so it was becoming a nightmare, you know. And it wasn't very healthy sort of thing, okay? We're in a lot of streets where you never got a ray of sunshine. So, you know, in the apartments it was damp, it was dark. So the emperor wanted a brand new city. So what they did is that they destroyed thousands of the old buildings to create space to be able to enlarge a lot of the street, to create new accesses so that, you know, the traffic could flow more easily through the city. And they built, you know, new apartment blocks in a new style, like the ones which are up there on the square, you see, called Haussmannian building, because of Mr. Haussmann, who was the man in charge of the modernization of the city. So it's a style that was then copied in other cities in France. And it was at the time also that they sort of they regulated the height of the buildings, because the idea was the buildings should not be too high. They calculated the height of the buildings in comparison to the width of the new boulevards and avenues, so that there would always be sunshine in the streets at some point during the day, which explains why we don't have tall buildings in the city. Louis XIV, the king, he created les Champs-Élysées. He was also the one who was in charge of the project here. Look at the balconies on either side. You see in the middle of the balconies there's a face with rays around. It's a sun that's represented there. The sun was the symbol of King Louis XIV. He was the one who commissioned the opening of the square. Again, the facades are all the same. The buildings are all different at the back. And you have the unity in the architecture. A column here in the center that is called the column of Austerlitz, because it commemorates the victory of Napoleon I, Emperor, at Austerlitz. The English talk about Waterloo and Trafalgar. We don't talk about that in this country, because those were defeats for us. They talk about Waterloo, we talk about Austerlitz. Now there to your left, doesn't look good, it's all, you know, under restoration. It's the famous Ritz Hotel of Paris. It's where Lady Diana spent her last evening. Right there. It's a hotel that belongs to Mohammed Al Fayed, father of Dodi Al Fayed. Sure, his boyfriend. He put it on the market, put the Ritz on the market a couple of years ago, but then he didn't manage to sell it, so he decided to work on it instead and to transform it. So it's going to be closed for at least another year, the Ritz. And you see here, you might have noticed already, all around this area, La Place Vendôme and this street, La Rue de la Paix, this is the area where in Paris you find the jewelry stores, where you may, like you have Cartier, Van Cleef & Arpels, Tiffany's. There's also a Baccarat store. They also do crystal, but they do jewels as well. All the big names are around here. This is really the area. Louis Vuitton is expensive, yes. Yes, it is. It is considered as deluxe. Absolutely. Yeah, it's deluxe goods, Louis Vuitton. There's a lot of fake going around. Yeah. By the way, we talk about buying from those illegal merchants on the streets. Buying fake is against the law in France. You can be stopped at the airport or at an international train station. They check your bag. If you have fake things, they'll take them away and you pay a fine. You pay a fine. It's to protect, the real bags, etc., etc. Now coming up on your left hand side here, look. This is the main monument that dates back to the time of Napoleon III.
Napoleon.
Not only did he build a new city that is like a monument itself, but he also commissioned for this brand new city a brand new opera house, brand new theater for the ballet, the dancing, and the operas, the music. We call it also the Garnier Palace because the young architect who designed this building was called Charles Garnier. And for the first time in Paris, there was a building with colors on the facade, different colors of marbles. Decoration, that wasn't new, but for the colors, yes. Mind you, in the Middle Ages, do you remember seeing the cathedral, the big church on the island, Notre Dame? You're going to see it again from the boat, where the story of the hunchback takes place. You know the hunchback of Notre Dame? Yeah. And it rings the bells. No. There used to be colours on those churches in the Middle Ages, which we don't have anymore, but they used to be. But in the 19th century, they didn't do that anymore. So this building here, was absolutely amazing for the time. It was really something that was modern. And then you see really around here, all the buildings, the streets, all of this is from the second half of the 19th century. The Opera House was inaugurated in 1875. So all of this really, this is the typical Haussmannian town planning here. Those wide avenues with the trees on either sides. Okay? Now we're going to go down Avenue de l'Opéra here, the Opera Avenue. And coming up on your left-hand side is Thomas Cook. Hey. I discovered a couple of months ago a Thomas Cook agency that specializes in golfing. Now, do we have trees here on the sides of the avenue? Nope. Only avenue in Paris without trees. And why
Yes.
would that be? Not to hide the facade of the Opera House behind you. Wow. This avenue is like an entrance to the Opera House. If they had grown trees, that would have hidden the facade of the Opera House in the springs and summers. So it's done on purpose. A lot of people, as you've noticed, along the avenue here, up there at the Opera House, it's a big shopping area all around the Opera House.
Starbucks.
At the back of the Opera House, they're the main department stores of Paris, which are quite famous, the Galerie Lafayette and the Printemps department store. So it's an area that will be totally deserted tomorrow. There'll be a few tourists, of course, going between the Louvre and the Opera House, because you can visit the Opera House. Oh, and by the way, if you want to have a special birthday to celebrate, or a wedding, or some kind of special ceremony, you can rent the Opera House. You can rent a lot of our monuments for your private party, if you have the money. Probably about €1 million for an evening at the Louvre. €1 million. Oh my God. How much is that?
French person, 1
But
million
we
is
often
nothing.
it's mostly what do you call them, corporations, for corporate business that they
80
rent.
crores,
Like last year in June, we had a group. We had 600 people for an evening inside the Opera House, and it's quite something. Because then you rent out the services of dancers and singers, and you have a whole show as well at the same time. So it's beautiful. It's magic. It is really. It's magic. It's really something. Now, at the bottom of Avenue de l'Opéra here, there is off the avenue, there's a beautiful park of Paris. If you come back to the city one day and you decide decide to come to Paris and spend more time in the city, so right now you're seeing a lot, and then you can choose to go back when you want to. Off on the left-hand side, there's this beautiful park, which is called Le Palais Royal. You can go in through the fences which are there. It's all enclosed with lovely buildings all around, so it's really, really quiet. There are a couple of fountains, you know. There's a theatre right here, building with the columns on the ground floor. It's called La Comédie Française. It's not really famous.